This is Abe Friedtanzer from cinemadailyus.com, and I'm so thrilled to be speaking with Naomi de Pear about The Power. How are you, Naomi?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. Can you tell me about what got you interested in The Power in the first place?
Yeah, I've always been interested in stories that are different to anything else I've seen before. We're always drawn at Sister to things that we feel like we haven't seen, but that we're craving. And when the manuscript came into Sister, we just knew we had to make it because the book that Naomi Alderman wrote is just so provocative, but so entertaining. And it was written like a pitch for a TV show. I mean, just the scope of it, but also the kind of different genres it deals with. You know, you've got a gangster story, you've got a cult story, you've got a political intrigue story, you've got a family story, all of these things at the heart of it. It's almost like you get to make five epic shows in one. So that was one of the things that really drew us to it. And the fact that it's got a really serious message, but it's really entertaining and there's a wit to it as well, the storytelling and where the characters go. And they exist in this kind of moral grey area, which is always interesting to watch. You know, the best TV deals with anti-heroes, but anti-heroes you're, despite yourself, sort of rooting for. And to have women in those roles as well is quite rare. And so we loved that about it too.
Do you think there might be some pushback to people who didn't want to see this show about powerful women? And did you care if you thought there might be pushback?
There's always pushback. I mean, I think we're existing in the backlash against the backlash at the moment to the Me Too movement. You know, I feel like, you know, when you look at Roe versus Wade and all sorts of things that are going on in the world. I mean, listen, in a way that this is what the show's about. It's like powerful people don't want to, you know, those with power don't want to give up their power, and power corrupts. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the men I know that are watching it are absolutely loving it. I don't feel it's not a show. It's a show for everybody, honestly, and the male characters are just as complex and interesting as the female characters in this show. But yeah, I think you know, female stories always feel new because it's not been the norm for so long. But that's what's exciting about it.
Absolutely. And is it difficult to balance the sort of science fiction element of it, which isn't so prominent? It's just an important sort of story anchor.
Yeah, it was really important for us to us in the production of it all to make sure that the science fiction element felt really grounded. Like you want women when lots of women went on Twitter when they read the book to say that you know they found themselves as they were reading the book like touching their collarbone and imagining, you know, as they were traveling to work on the train or whatever, that they had to skein themselves. And we wanted people watching the show to have the same feeling. So it was important for us that it didn't feel superhero-y or magical, or you know, it needs to feel like this is evolution. You know, women have developed this because they needed it for survival. And so the makeup department, the visual effects department, the SFX department, everyone worked together, and through post as well, to make sure, and with the music and everything, that it feels like this sort of beating organ in their chests, and that the way the electricity is elicited from different women's bodies is really different every time because they all have different kinds of power. You know, Roxy's is much stronger, she's much more brutal. She's sort of gangster, so hers takes that kind of form, whereas Ali's is much more, she has the power of being able to really sort of put things in people's minds and really know how to control people. And her power is very she's very precise with the way she can use her powers. So yeah, it was important for us to feel that variation, but also for it to feel really real and organic.
It sounds like there isn't like a Bible of rules of how these powers work, but rather the idea is they're not consistent, and that's sort of what's exciting about it.
Yes, exactly. In the same way as not everyone has the same size muscles, you know, or not every human beings, everybody's bodies are different, everybody's genetics are different. So yeah, we had scales, we had all sorts of an Alderman scale of the power and all these things. We talked to a lot of scientific advisors, and it is based in nature. Electric eels do the way the skein is designed is based on the way electric eels are designed. And if you put an electric eel in a tank with a human being, that they could kill the human being very quickly. So all of that is based in nature.
I was looking at some of the projects that you've worked on in the past, and there's one that struck me that I think is similar to this in a lot of ways, but because it's based in technology rather than, superpowers, it seems like it's something that we're getting closer to, and that's humans, which I believe you were involved in
Oh,
developing. Does
yes.
do you see similarities between these two projects?
I think yeah, I suppose I feel like they both have a very contemporary resonance. We're always looking for things that exist, stories that are just compelling in themselves because they have incredible characters and relationships and propulsive storytelling at the heart of them, but also the kind of why now? Like, why would you make this show now? Why could this show not have been made 20 years ago in the same way? What's going to be and what's going to strike an audience about this? That's something they're already thinking about, but you want to you know, be sort of um, investigating something that is in the current consciousness without it feeling like homework. And so Humans was a way of looking at AI and the way technology is changing all of our lives, but in a very human based, in a very human way. And so yeah, I suppose there's a similarity there. It feels like, power dynamics in the world now are so particular, and it feels like in some ways we've moved on so far. Um, and yet we're also being pulled back in other ways. And I think there's a really interesting thing going on between the generations. And I think the younger generation at the moment are so underestimated. And it makes me quite angry because I think they're amazing. I think people are getting better and better. And when I talk to my nephews and my niece, they are so well informed and they are so politically conscious and so aware of unfairness and power dynamics and all of that kind of thing. And I think things have made massive inroads, but they're always underestimated, the younger generation. They get a really bad rap, but if anyone's going to save us from the mess we're in, it's them. And I think this show has these incredibly iconic young characters at the heart of it who are going to be the future leaders of the world. And how often do you get to see, a young girl from North London who's underestimated by her father and her brothers get to be a gangster on screen, get to become a gangster, and a young girl from the deep south, ending up being a sort of messianic leader. These are iconic parts, but they're played by young people, and it's about young people, and that thing of you can change the world if you're brave enough, essentially.
Have you seen any surprising reactions to the show?
Ooh. My father said something interesting today. He said it made him ask himself if he was sexist, and he was like, maybe everybody's a bit sexist. But it made him think about his own approach to things. Other surprising reactions to the show. No, we've been really pleased with the reaction to the show. I think um, people seem to be really drawn into the characters and the surprises, because I think the thing about this show is we keep pulling the rug from under you, especially as we head towards the end of the series. I mean, where Tatiana goes, I don't know if you saw last night's episode, but all of that rage that has been boiling up inside of her, it's going to come out, and she is not a morally perfect human being, and there's going to be really huge collateral to that. And that's been really exciting to watch people's reaction to her. I think she's got a really fun following because she's sort of, you love her with her sort of ridiculous little tiny pony that she trots around her palace, but also she's got some pretty dark intentions.
You always seem to work on shows that deal with interesting, complicated characters, and one of those is This Is Going to Hurt, which I know has had a very positive reception here in the United States. What was your involvement like in that show, and what struck you about it?
That was another one that came to us as a manuscript before it was released. So we had a feeling it would be a hit. As soon as I read it, I mean, I could not stop laughing when I read that manuscript. I was actually sort of crying with laughter, and I had to keep putting it down because I was sort of, yeah, just losing myself laughing so much. But really, for me, it was such an incredible love song to the NHS, but again, in such an irreverent way. It's sort of doing that thing of saying we need to love our healthcare providers. They are the people, they're there at the beginning of our lives, they're there at the end of our lives, and then for all of the stuff in between, for the best bits and the worst bits of all of our lives. And they get so underestimated, especially the junior doctors. But the lens and the voice, Adam Kay's voice, it's so that it's the mixture of the profane and the profound. You've got a sort of a silly joke 1 minute, and then the next minute it's just stabbing you in the heart. And that is actually what it feels like when you're in hospital. Hospitals are these amazing places where they're probably the only place where you get people from all walks of life and all different class levels and everything in the UK. And so yeah, it was the humor and the distinctiveness of that character, to have. I've seen numerous medical dramas over the years and loved all of them, but it's quite rare that you get such a misanthropic central character playing that doctor. They're normally the heroes and they're morally good, but he's Adam as a character is much more complex than that. And so yeah, I worked on it very closely, worked on the scripts very closely with Adam. There, there wasn't anyone after Ben that I could have imagined playing that role. He did such a beautiful job. He just brings so much nuance and humanity to every role he plays, and he's also just so funny. And Ambica Maud, it was her first thing really, and she blew me away as Shruti as well. And their relationship broke my heart.
I want to ask you also about The Bisexual, which is a show that I think is a really under the radar gem. I hope people have seen. Am I crazy? Do you think people have seen this show? I really enjoyed it, but I just haven't heard much about it in the past few years.
Yeah, that's true, actually. I mean, Desi is just so ridiculously talented. And it's a similar thing, I think, as with The Power, and this is going to hurt. I'm always drawn to projects that really make me laugh and can say things in a way that can feel quite dangerous sometimes, but also have a kind of point at their hearts of them. And but Desi, she wrote and directed and starred in that. And yeah, you're right. It perhaps it did. I still have people now getting in touch and saying, I've just seen The Bisection, I didn't know about it, and I absolutely loved it. But that was another amazing cast, and another one that I feel like smuggled in a lot of heartbreak amongst the kind of jokes. But she's so good at that.
Absolutely. Well, it's very nice to be able to revisit some of these projects and talk about The Power. And for more great conversations like this, you can subscribe to the Cinema Daily US YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Naomi, for taking a few minutes to speak with me today.
Thanks, Abe. It's great to meet you.